Okay, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our second lecture. This is for Block 3, and this is going to be solving multi-step equations, or more specifically, solving multi-step single variable equations. Remember, we're not dealing with expressions anymore, we're looking at equations, so that's going to mean we're going to have an equal sign somewhere in there. Okay, and this requires a different kind of handling, so we'll take a look at that. One of the terms we need to define right now is going to be a term of inverse operations. Okay, inverse operations. And inverse operations are operations. Remember, operators are things like addition, multiplication, stuff like that. Okay, so these are operations that undo each other. Okay, operations that undo each other. Okay, so, for example, addition and subtraction undo each other. Those are opposites, inverse operations. Okay. Another example would be multiplication and division. Those two operators are going to undo each other. Okay. And a final example would be an exponent of 2 or squared and the square root operation. Those undo each other. Okay, so there's your definition of inverse operations. Okay. Now, before we move on and start practicing, because that's going to be the best way to actually look at what happens here, what you need to know is that inverse operations are going to be how you move things from one side of an equal sign to the other. Okay? And the next thing you need to know before we actually start practicing are a 5 set of steps. Okay? 5 steps for actually solving these equations. Right, so we're going to look at 5 steps now. These are steps for solving equations. First step, okay, you're going to get rid of parentheses or brackets. Usually by distribution. Okay, that's the first step. Step number 2, combine like terms on either side of the equal sign. Combine like terms on either side of equal sign. Okay. Step number 3, move variables to the same side of the equal sign. Move variables to the same side of equal sign. Okay, number 4, move other terms to the opposite side of the equal sign. And the final step would be to get rid of the coefficients attached to the variable. Okay, that's get rid of coefficients attached to the variable. And you're going to ask, how do we get rid of these things? Well, we're going to use inverse operations. Okay. All right, so now that we have these 5 steps, we're going to use them. All right, so let's take a look at an example of a multi-step single variable equation. Okay. Example number 1. Negative 8 equals negative x plus 4. All right, so here's example number 1. Now remember, we've talked about this. This is the black hole for distribution. Okay, we have to get rid of parentheses because that's step number 1 on our steps. Get rid of the parentheses. Okay, but we need to make sure we get rid of them correctly. So I'm going to rewrite this guy with something there that will help us greatly. Okay, this negative sign is going to turn into a negative 1. All right, and then because we're justifying our steps, okay, over here, what am I going to do? I'm going to distribute the negative 1. Okay, that's what I'm going to do next. So we're going to carry everything that we're not going to touch down and then distribute the negative 1. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x, or negative x. And negative 1 times positive 4 is going to be negative 4. All right. Now, we need to combine like terms on either side of the equal sign. So let's look at this side of the equal sign with the negative 8. Do we have any like terms over there? No, it's just one term, negative 8. So we can't combine anything. What about this side? Do we have any like terms over here? No, it's just 2 terms, but 4 doesn't have an x, so we can't combine those things. Okay, so that step is done. Move variables to the same side of the equal sign. All right, well, let's move all the variables to the same side of the equal sign. I'm going to move this x over here, and we'll talk about why I'm doing that later. But that's what I'm going to do to solve this equation. I'm going to move the x over. So what I'm going to do is use inverse operations. Right now it's a negative x. So how do we invert that or make that opposite? Okay, we're going to add x to both sides. Both sides. Okay? Anything you do to one side, you have to do the other. So we're going to add x to both sides. Okay. And the result of this, negative x plus x, those cancel out. Okay? And then we've got negative 8 plus x. Well, 8 and x aren't like terms, so I'm just going to put negative 8 plus x equals, what's left over here? Negative 4. Okay. So now we've got variables to the same side. Okay, and we want to move the other terms to the opposite side. So I need to get this 8 to the opposite side. How am I going to do that? Again, we're utilizing opposites or inverse operations. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. Okay, so we're going to add 8 here. And we've got to do it over here too. All right. Now I've got x equals negative 4 plus 8 is going to be a positive 4. So x equals 4. And there's my answer. I'm done. That variable we know is 4. How do we know that? Well, we're going to check our answer. Okay, I'm going to take this variable, look at my original equation, negative 8 equals negative x plus 4. Okay, and we're going to check it. So I'm going to plug in that 4 where x is. Negative 8 equals negative 4 plus 4, which is negative 8 equals negative 8 There's also negative 8 equals negative 8. Negative 8 does indeed equal, or is the same as negative 8, so we know that that's our correct answer. All right. Let's look at a different example. Okay, let's take a look at another example. This one's going to be a little more challenging. Okay, it's a wee bit more challenging, but that's the fun. Okay. So this is example number 2. And it's going to be negative 5, parentheses 1 minus 5x, plus 5, parentheses negative 8x minus 2, close parentheses, equals negative 4x minus 8x. Okay. Now this looks really crazy and daunting. Don't worry. Right? We just have to follow our steps. So we're going to get rid of parentheses first. Okay, that's step number 1 here. Get rid of our parentheses. So that's the first thing we're going to do. I'm going to justify it. So this step, I'm going to distribute the negative 5. Okay, that's what I'm going to do over here. Negative 5 times 1, negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 5x, 25x. Okay. Now I'm going to carry down everything else I didn't touch. Plus 5, parentheses, 8x minus 2 equals negative 4x minus 8x. Minus 4. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to distribute the positive 5 this time, the positive 5. Okay, so this guy here is just going to come down, minus 5 plus 25x, and then we get to our distribution piece. So positive 5 times negative 8 is negative 40x. Positive 5 times negative 2. Negative 10. All right. Equals negative 4x minus 8x. Okay, so we are finished getting rid of parentheses. That means we can move on to step 2. We're going to combine like terms on either side of the equal sign. So let's look at this side over here. Do I have like terms? I do. I see two things that can combine. Okay. Both of those things have an x. There's no exponent on either one, so we can combine those. I'm going to justify it by going combined positive 25x and negative 40x. Okay. So, negative 5, positive 25 minus 40x is going to be minus 15x minus 10 equals negative 4x minus 8x. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. Let's look at that same side and see if there's any more like terms over here we can combine. There are. This one and this one. Okay, so now we're going to combine negative 5 and negative 10. Okay. Negative 5 minus 10 is going to be minus 15. And then we have what we didn't touch this time, which is the minus 15x. then equals negative 4x minus 8x. Okay, now we need to look at the other side because there's no more